There is a stereotype within the pagan community that gets encapsulated as epic wolf shirt guy. And I know some of you have seen it because I heard the laughter. It's an extreme form of animal kinship. Epic wolf shirt guy has an animal that they really resonate with, usually something sort of stereotypically pagan, hence wolf being the classic example. And the joke is that they own like 2,327 representations of their animal and have an altar dedicated to their animal and wear clothes with dramatic art of the animal printed on them, hence the epic wolf shirt of the guy, and may in fact go by the name of their animal in pagan circles. One of the sillier pagan social media memes I've seen over the years was a Wicca drive-thru where you could order a magical name and the top name on the menu was Raven Wolf Raven. We are aware that we come across as ridiculous at times. And as with many things that can seem kind of silly on the surface, if you peel back another layer, this over-the-top bond with a particular animal points to something much deeper with roots that go back beyond written records. You see, animal kinship is as old as our species. That ancient bond still bubbles up, but in the culture of the contemporary United States and other Western nations, it doesn't really have a good channel for expression or for understanding. So people with that bond end up handling it through capitalism and simply buy every wolf figurine and t-shirt that they see. They're trying to address something potent and profound, but lack the cultural path that once held that connection. So much of my own work in this world is about connection. Some of that is helping people find spiritual practices that nourish them. Some of that is shaping and supporting human communities of like mind. And some of that is renewing and teaching about historical practices that were shunned or suppressed or banned in the name of creating a civilized society. Animal kinship falls into that latter category. The first wound that colonization inflicts is to the colonizers. And this does not outweigh or mitigate the damage done to others, but it's good to remember that the weapon of colonization wounds the wielder first. Like most white people in the United States, I am descended from colonizers. But before the concepts of manifest destiny and the subjugation of other cultures took root, my ancestors belonged to the land that they lived with and the other species that lived there with them. My ancestors had practices and beliefs that supported their bond with the world that they lived in. Once upon a time, all humans were indigenous to an area of land and the relationships that grew out of that ecosystem and the spirits that dwelled there. This deep form of connection, of belonging, of relationship is part of our human history. Kinship with the non-human world is part of pre-conversion and pre-colonialist culture, and this process whereby colonizers attempted to destroy the cultures of other parts of the world began at home. You can see it used in the language used by those in power to describe the folk practices of people who lived in more rural environments during the conversion and then the early colonization period. The communities that still followed some of the pre-conversion practices and traditions around seasonal cycles and land connectedness were described as savage or uncivilized or stupid. And this is the exact same language used by colonizers to describe the cultures they encountered and then attempted to eradicate while they extracted resources from those communities. The first wound happens at home. For the descendants of colonizers, that first wound to our own cultural animism and connectedness raises questions. Sometimes I wonder who I would be and what this world would be like if I had just been allowed to be Scottish. If my ancestors had resisted conversion and colonialism and maintained their culture and their land connectedness. You see, our ancestors were land connected for far longer than they were colonizers. Just to use my own bloodline as an example, Scotland is estimated to have been inhabited by humans for 12,000 years. the patterns of pre-colonization life were present for much longer than those of post-colonization life. We carry those instincts toward land connection as a result. They're very old. It's why so many of us feel this deep longing when we learn about surviving indigenous traditions. We know on a deep level that there was once something like that for us. Which brings me back to the funny ways those older forms of connection remain. Animal kinship is one of the threads of land connectedness that was the hardest to break. You see, kinship is more than just affinity. It's more than just liking foxes or bears or hawks. It's a recognition of deep connection and resonance between ourselves and a non-human being. One of the fun things about having a decently sized social media presence is that I can ask a large group of people a question. As I was preparing for this sermon, I asked my social media audience, if you have a deep bond to a particular animal, what caused that bond? Was there a specific incident, or was the feeling of kinship always present? And I can tell when I hit a nerve by the number of responses and the enthusiasm in them. For many people, the feeling of connection with an animal is so deeply ingrained that they do not remember where it began. Some people reported a childhood shunning of normal toys in favor of figurines or stuffies in the shape of their animal. It was just natural for them. For other people, the connection was a particular species that began because members of that species initiated a relationship. A powerful encounter or set of encounters set off a lifelong bond. Now, what's cool is that these exact same experiences and types of connection appear in written records and lingering folk practices and pre-conversion cultures. The kinship we experience is not new. We have many records of it. In circumpolar regions like those of the Sami, the connection with bears is profound. Along with a deep kinship that manifests in many ways, people who survive an encounter with a bear are considered even more deeply bonded to that being. Survivors of bear encounters have been called on to be present during births, lending some of the strength and the maternal gifts of the bear to the family having a baby. Individual encounters can cause or can deepen a connection. Throughout the world, family lines and cohabiting communities were described as descended from particular animals. Bears, wolves, boars, deer, all of these are mentioned when referring to prominent family lines in Europe. In Latin America, the rulers of the Maya took on animal insignia. Some of the kings were credited with the power to shapeshift into the beings that they were connected with. In Africa, different tribes were associated with different animals. The Balete tribe of Botswana adopted the buffalo as their totem, symbolizing their army's strength and the ability to stand united. And the stories of the Balete include a tale of the buffalo protecting them from an invading force. Community and family connection can be the root of animal kinship. In Europe, this kinship shifted from a story of origin, where a family was literally described as being descended from an animal like a boar, to the display of animals on coats of arms. Some medieval heraldry was aspirational, but some of it was simply a way to channel a long-standing kinship into something more socially acceptable. To this day, surnames that reference animals are not uncommon. We recognize the ones in English, right, like fox, bear, wolf, buck. But when you expand to other languages, you learn that last names referencing animals are everywhere. Marshall, Howard, Strickland, all of these are last names that are derived from animals. Likewise, this kinship still appears in our language. We describe people as strong as a bear, or wise as an owl, or mischievous as a crow, or in my case, stubborn as an ox. Like so much of the ancient world, this thread of kinship lingers all around us. It's so present that we don't even really consciously notice it. It's sort of a blind spot. And as one of the threads of animism that has been the most resistant to destruction and colonization, animal kinship offers us a way to rebuild our connection with the land we live on and the species we live with. The Unitarian Universalist value of interdependence reminds us that humans are just one part of a vast web of connection. When we begin to truly open to the possibilities of kinship with our fellow species, we're better able to live this value in meaningful ways. There are different paths to cultivating kinship. The first path involves recognition. Sometimes our own family trees contain the answer, a name that means a certain animal or a coat of arms back in the family line that bore the symbol of animal kinship. Sometimes our connections are more personal. Think about which animals or species you were drawn to as a child. If you went to the zoo, where did you always want to go first? Which animal stories or movies or documentaries were or are the most appealing to you? And which species are most interesting to you now? Which animals or birds or insects are the ones you stop to marvel at when you encounter them in the wild? Which do you greet when you encounter them? So, for example, I am crow-connected. Most days when I am in my garden, the raucous calls of my local murder ring out to greet me, and I always call a good morning back to them. Additionally, this crow connection appears in multiple places in my life. The band I am in is called Kindred Crow. The mystery school I teach and lead is called Black Feather. I'm known for wearing only black clothing, for being social, loyal, mischievous, curious, all traits shared by crows. Begin to notice where animal kinship appears in your own life. The second path involves seeking out kinship. We may not necessarily have a strong sense of the non-humans that we are connected to. For those of us whose ancestors came to this land from elsewhere, it's tempting to look backwards, to feel kinship, but I would argue that the path forward to a healthier relationship with our planet and our fellow species is to begin with right where we are. Begin by learning about the land that we belong to today, the animals, birds, and insects that we see. Explore the local ecosystem, the spiritual and physical polyculture that you live in now. Begin to notice which species are unusually present for you, and then look them up. Notice which species here are somewhat revered. Here in Western Maryland, we are blessed with an abundant ecosystem. We have black bears, foxes, deer, coyotes, bobcats, hawks, owls, ravens, and more. And all of these species are honored in folk tales and stories, and we can learn from those stories. All of these species are fascinating, and they all hold a powerful place in the ecosystem. The biology of our non-human family can teach us a good deal about ourselves and our relationship to the world. I'm not a fan of the Google search of what does a hawk mean? But I'm a big fan of literally looking up the species of hawk and looking at its life cycle. What purpose does it serve? What is its function in the ecosystem? How is its social system constructed? These are useful threads. Some of the other stuff is less so and kind of goes with the epic wolf shirt category. But whether found through recognition or research, begin to honor your kinship. This means more than going out and buying an epic wolf shirt. When we are kin to someone, we do our best to do right by them, to treat them as family. Just as we provide healthy food and safe shelter to human guests within our home, we must learn how to create hospitality with our non-human kin. This might mean donating to or volunteering with wild animal rehabilitation centers that support the species you're kin to. This might mean helping clean up parts of the region that have become polluted so that the species you're connected with can have safe places to live. This might mean teaching about the role of different species in the local ecosystem, or sharing the folk tales and mythology your animal kin are part of. Contemporary animism is expansive. We ground our animistic spiritual connection in the science of ecology, the understanding of the different cycles and systems that we are a part of. We honor the way that ecological system is then contained within folk traditions, mythology, and story. And we engage with the nonlinear and non-logical ways of knowing, that spiritual sense of resonance, recognition, and relationship that we experience with our animal kin. We then allow this combination, this interwoven tapestry of information and science, perspective and connection to inspire our relationship building. Contemporary animism is also active. One of my favorite teachers of contemporary animism is Dr. Rune Hjarno Rasmussen, and I will close with some of his words. Shame is part of an internalized complex of guilt, sin, forgiveness, and redemption, which is rooted in Christianity. This very legitimate emotional reaction should lead us to feelings of responsibility rather than shame. There is no forgiveness or redemption for the shame of and guilt over genocides of entire continents, but there is relation building. Built on respect, kindness, and responsibility, we can involve ourselves in activism, allyship, and reconciliatory projects in so many ways. Kinship is one of the many paths to honor a more animistic way of interacting with the world around us. It's one of the many paths of relation building that's even open to us. Animal kinship is part of our human history, stretching back to the very dawn of our species and contained in the earliest written records of humans. It's a thread of connection that remains open to us now. And as we seek to live our value of interdependence, consider how you want to honor this connection and what kinships do you wish to build.